Hello, hello. Beautiful listeners, before we dive in to today's topic, I wanted to give a proper thank you to all of you. Last week, I hit a very fun milestone here at the Design Yourself podcast, and it is a listener led milestone. So last week, we broke into the top 25% of most listened to podcasts. And I am really grateful and appreciative of all of you. I know that the reason we broke into that milestone is because you are showing up and listening. You are telling other people that you think might find it valuable, and they're showing up and listening. You are leaving reviews, which gives the podcast exposure. And I just can't tell you how much that means to me. So, thank you, thank you, thank you and more, please. I will have one other thank you about this, but I will save it till the end of the podcast. So let's get into today's topic. Last week on the podcast, we talked about the art of asking powerful questions. And as a coach, as a team accelerator, this is a craft that I am paying attention to all the time. It's one of the core things that I use in my work. And to be able to ask powerful questions, we have to be able to listen deeply. To be able to go beyond the powerful question into something more, we have to hold the space once we've asked the powerful question, right? So these things are connected. And how do we hold the space? Guess what? Deep listening shows up again. So this intersection between what are the questions we're asking and what is the quality of our listening, right? This is the dance, asking, listening, asking, listening. So, my headline in all of this is that the quality of our listening directly correlates to the quality of our conversation. Powerful questions steward powerful listening because by asking the powerful question, you can prompt the break so that you can bring the powerful listening, and by listening deeply, you can then move to the next thing. You can bring another attuned, on point, great framing question. Okay. Therefore, in today's episode, what I wanted to do is highlight for you the listening blocks that often hold us back. So, the way we're going to move through today's podcast is to first look at what are these listening blocks. And then I'm going to offer up just a few reflection questions for you to consider. How does this apply to me in my own life? Okay, so that's what we're doing. So, let's jump straight to the listening blocks. And by the way, this framing comes from a book called The Communication Skills Book, written by Matthew McKay, Martha Davis, and Patrick Fanning. So if this is something you're interested, check it out. Always link to this stuff in the show notes. You can find the show notes wherever you're listening. It'll be at the end of the show description, or you can head over to pointroadstudios.com. Okay. Here is what I mean by a listening block. Uh, we're not talking today about what are the different distinctions of types of listening. What does powerful listening look like? That's for another podcast. This is about when you're in conversation with someone else, what can stand in your way of listening? So here's the first one: mind reading. So imagine you're in a conversation and someone is talking to you. And if you're mind reading, you are assuming that you know what the other person thinks, feels, means. Okay. So this means that before they finish their statement, you're like, I know exactly what you're going to say. It's this. The thing is, you don't know exactly what they're going to say. So the minute you catch yourself thinking, oh, I know what they mean by this, check yourself. So again, like everything, radical self awareness. I'm noticing that I'm thinking I know what they mean by this. Great noticing, friends. Now disrupt and say, okay, how can I bring myself back to what they're saying? Maybe I'm asking a question. I heard you say this. What did you mean by that? Okay, that's the move. Can you sometimes say and build connection by saying, oh, I really think what you mean is this. Is that right? So it's not that I'm saying you can never bring in and notice and appreciate, like, oh, I think I am so in sync. But the minute you're doing that, just know that that's not listening. That's coming into your own sensing, sometimes deep intuitive sensing, but your own sensing of what's happening. And when you're doing that, you're not listening anymore. So that's the thing to catch. Am I mind reading? Rehearsing. This is one I see all the time when I'm facilitating. Imagine you're in a room. Maybe it's a room of people you're meeting for the first time, or maybe it's a group of people that you work with all the time, but facilitators come in and they've said to you, I'd like you to go around the room and say X. Introduce yourself and share this topic, right? This is a really common scenario we find ourselves in our professional lives and sometimes even in our personal lives. What happens for many of us is that because we want to impress people, because we want to rehearse, we and make sure that we sound great, because whatever the thing is, what happens is we start rehearsing what we want to say. This can also happen because there's a point being made and you're getting ready to share like your point of view. You're at a school board meeting and you have your name signed up so that you're going to share something with the board and you're going to speak your speak your point of view. And instead of paying attention to what's happening prior to you speaking, you're rehearsing what you want to say. So rehearsing can get in the way of listening because if we're planning what we're going to say next, we're not listening to what's being said around us in advance of us. Now, I'll just say for this one, there are some tools to set yourself up. So you can, if it's something that you're going to say, write it down. Hopefully, when you're invited into that moment, you have space to do that. You've either been able to prepare in advance, or if a facilitator like me is saying, hey, I'm going to ask everyone to do this, take a minute and just jot down any notes that you would like to capture. So, if you can, whatever preparation that allows you to not worry that you're going to forget your point or know what you're going to say. The other thing is to just trust that what you'll share is enough. Let go of the need to be perfect and just bring your full presence. And if you're doing that, it will be incredibly powerful and you will benefit because you'll be able to connect into what people said ahead of you. You'll be able to capture and hear what the wisdom is of the group that you're with. So watch yourself if you're rehearsing. Third, listening block, filtering. This is when you are listening only for what's relevant for you. Have you ever done this before, dear listener? So, this often happens when we are in a process of just wanting to cut through and prove a point, or um, we're just wanting to find the thing that we're looking for. So, maybe this can even happen in research, a different kind of listening, where you go out and you seek to find the data to verify something that you want to prove, right? You're filtering to prove your point. You're not listening to the breadth of what's out there and available. In a group dynamic or in a one on one conversation, someone's bringing something forward, but you're only paying attention to, like, well, what's the thing that I'm here to do? I've witnessed this I do sponsor alignment conversations frequently in my work, where the broad strokes of this is that the sponsor, often an executive, a manager of a member of a team that I am coaching, they come together and the coaching client that I'm working one-on-one with is there to share, this is this is what I'm working on in coaching. This is what's emerging. They're celebrating this and they're Sponsor is there to say, this is what I see as possible for you. Here's how I think I could support those things you've just shared that you're working on. And what I find is sometimes I have my coaching client will be so focused on sharing what they have come into the session to share. Here's my vision. This is how I see it I can bring it to life and create impact in the workplace here. And the sponsor may be sharing something really vulnerable. Like, you know what? Here was my vision. Here's a place that I struggled when I was in a similar season of my career. And if the coaching client is so attuned to and intent on sharing, like, this is what's happening for me in the coaching, they can miss the ability to connect and go deeper on something really vulnerable that their sponsor is sharing. And that's because they're filtering and listening only to what's relevant to them and the thing they came in to talk about. So, again, check yourself if you're filtering. Next up, judging. Judging means we are evaluating the speaker and what they say. If we are judging, right? I think is this feeling intuitive as I'm sharing this? If we're judging, it means rather than listening to what's being said, we've got our own internal monologue about what we believe about that person, probably that's negative. I mean, you can also be judging, like, oh my gosh, their life must be so amazing. They're so awesome. And often it's, who do they think they are? Why are they wearing that? I can't even listen to what they're saying because they're saying like so much. The sound of their voice, the color of their shirt, the way her hair is styled, whatever it is. We're judging them. We're not listening. And the moment we have an internal monologue happening, we're not paying attention to what's being said. We can't listen. So notice if you are judging. Next up, daydreaming. This is where we are just lost in our own thoughts. And that might be because we have another big meeting and we haven't been able to turn that off. We're anxious about it. It might be because there's just something we like can't wait to get to that's happening later that day. It might be we're exhausted and like our mind is just wandering. But for whatever reason it's happening, the moment you catch yourself getting lost in your own thoughts, know that you're not listening to what's being said. That, my friends, is daydreaming. Okay, next up, identifying. Identifying is where you are relating everything you hear to yourself. You're saying this, I see how it applies to me. Now, feels connected to mind reading, but it's distinct because mind reading might be because our experience tells us it's going to be this, or, oh, I get what you're saying. You mean this. But identifying means everything that you're taking about what they say is you're just hearing it as it relates to you. This can often happen when we're getting a big announcement about something that's happening in our organization or in a department. And all we can think about is how it connects to us, how it's going to impact us. Oh my God, this person just got promoted. What does that mean for my team? We just acquired this new business, or we just sold this part of our business. What does that mean for me? We're making layoffs. How is that impacting me? Right? Like those kinds of things. You're hearing it, but everything that you're hearing, you're now starting to play back. Here's how it's going to relate to me. And that keeps you from staying with what's the fullness of what's being said, because now I'm blocked off thinking about what relates back to me. Okay, so that's identifying. It can also happen where, on a more personal level, um, where it's like you assume you're the same. So uh, I'm just hearing everything you're saying in the context of how it's going to connect back to me because we're just so similar, right? So just catch yourself on that. Am I identifying? And when I'm doing that, I'm not actually listening and being curious about what's distinct, what's different. And by the way, something that I like to do sometimes when that's happening, here's two moves that I'll make. As a coach, I frequently find I'm coaching people and I'm like, ooh, I like if there's something about this that really feels connected back to me. I am identifying with what they're saying. One thing that I can do as an internal move is I just notice for myself, I'm really feeling a sense of connection to this personally. But I almost imagine myself physically like lifting up that connection and setting it to the side, or lifting up that connection and like shooting it like it's a basketball, like shooting it off into the distance. Bye, connection, and then come back to what they're saying. So that's one move I'll make. Another move I'll make is I will say, you know what? I'm noticing that you have said this, this, and this. That's demonstrating my listening. And that's sparking for me a connection to something that I have experienced. My experience is not the same as your experience. So I'm validating we're different. And I think it might help for me to share this. Would it be okay? Now, let's be clear. I'm not listening anymore when I'm doing this. But it's a place where I'm like, I actually think rather than setting my experience to the side is the right move in order to stay connected based on what I'm hearing, what I'm listening to. Sharing might be nice, might be high impact to what they're doing. And so I ask if I can share. Now, that is, I would say, 10% of the time, maybe even less than that when I'm in those situations. Like, again, and note that's not listening, but those are two moves that I find work when identifying is happening. All right. Next up, we're about halfway through, by the way. Okay, so let's just do a quick recap. Are you with me? We've done mind reading, rehearsing, filtering, judging, daydreaming, identifying. All right, maybe like in that group, you're noticing which of those things do I see tends to be my biggest blocker? Which of those things has created a new awareness for me as I think about these listening blocks? Okay, center in. And notice if anything's keeping you from listening to the next half of this list. And let's come back. Take a breath. Bring back your best listening, and we'll keep going. Okay, next up. This is for all the consultants and problem solvers out there. Advising. This is where we are listening to solve or direct. So rather than listening just to hear, just to understand, you're listening to say, here's how we can fix this. I don't know of any of the female identifying listeners, but this is often something that in a world where we are speaking in gender terms, where women often feel that the men listening to them are trying to solve problems for them. And that I see that come up quite a lot, both professionally and personally. Um, and I know it happens in the reverse too. And it happens in same gendered situations. But just think about an instance where you have been sharing something, and rather than someone listening to understand, they're just listening to get to, well, how can we fix this? And the minute you're trying to fix it, you're not listening to understand. So check yourself if the listening block that's showing up is advising. Next up, sparring. This is where you have a motive, and your motive is to prove that you can say that what that speaker is sharing is not valid. So you are inspiring, you're invalidating the speaker through argument or debate. So when you hear sparring happening, that will often, there'll be a lot of interruptions. Someone's speaking, someone else is jumping in. There'll be a lot of declarations from the interrupter. So those are some of the things you might sense. It will feel more like a debate than deep listening, a lot of interruptions. Uh, a cousin to sparring is the listening block of being right. And this also, I would say, connects into filtering. This is where you are resisting all communication that suggests you're wrong. Everything that you're only hearing if it shows that you're right. So you can see how that also connects into a specific kind of filtering. Um, and you might be doing that so then you can spar. But you can also just be listening where you're like, okay, what about this shows that I'm right? Okay, I'm listening for this to show that I'm right. Oh, yeah, see that thing? That's what I said. And so again, there's a kind of inner monologue. There's a way of being where what you're focused on is I'm right, dot, 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 and you're wrong. So confirming that you're right. All right. 3 more to go. Next up is the listening block of derailing. When we are derailing, we're changing the subject. I see this happen a lot in team settings where we are there to focus on something specific and then we're going off task because there's, well, you said this, well, let's talk about how that applies over here. This is why a real support to listen deeply is to frame the conversation and then bring rigor and discipline to staying with that focus, watching when tangents are happening and bringing it back. So notice that when derailing is happening, the way that that will show up is we're changing the subject. So we're no longer listening to the point that someone's making. I will often see that this can show up when um, uh, uh, I'll give it a specific example. A more junior member of the team who's been on the ground in the research of something, some data, some analysis that's being presented to an executive team group. And they're coming in to share that to the executive team. And the executive team is asking all kinds of questions that take it off of the point that that on the grounds person is there to share. Now that might happen because there was a lack of oversight going in to make sure that the elevation of what that person is sharing was at the right level for the audience they're presenting to. That can also happen because you you have a distracted executive team that has their own agenda and is trying to move things somewhere else. So there's a lot of reasons for how that can happen. But the thing that you will be observing is that there is this moving to another subject, not staying with what the focus is. So you're derailing. You're not staying in the listening of, but what are we trying to communicate about this, and not jumping to something else. Okay, next up, comparing. Again, this I would say is another flavor of judging. This is when you're comparing, you're trying to figure out how you compare to the speaker. For example, who is better? Who does more? It might be that you're going around and doing a report out. And as they're speaking, you're like, but what about what my team's done? What about how I've contributed? Right? You're really comparing what you're hearing from them to you. And so when that's happening, you're not paying attention to what's being said. You're just paying attention to the comparison. You're not listening. And finally, last flavor of listening block is placating. This is where you are yesing and agreeing too quickly. It's like rather than dropping in to go deeper, it's like, yes, yes, that's right. So like, let's move on to the next thing. And that can sometimes that can feel like, well, I'm just trying, like, I get it, we're good, we're fine. But you're shutting down the sharing, you're shutting down the ability for that other person to keep going. You're no longer listening. The yesing is stopping the conversation. Whatever the motive is that underlies it, know that if you are agreeing too quickly, if you're not leaving the fullness of space for someone to share, you're not listening deeply. Okay, so let me do another quick recap on those last 5. Those were advising, sparring, being right, derailing, comparing, placating. And again, in that list, you might notice, which of these things am I more drawn to? Which of these things do I tend to see as a flavor that shows up and gets in my way? Do I notice that there's a flavor that gets in my team's way, in my family's way when we're in dialogue? Just notice that without judgment. Okay, I said I was going to give you a couple of reflection questions, and I am. Here they are. I want you to think about first, what's one listening block that you could pay attention to this week to improve the quality of your conversation? What's one listening block you could pay attention to improve the quality of your conversation or conversations that you're having this week? It might be, I know I've got this big vacation coming up. I should pay attention to if I'm daydreaming. It might be that you've heard these and you're like, oh, wow, I do a lot of judging or a lot of rehearsing or a lot of fill in the blanking. Great noticing, pay attention to it to improve the quality of your conversations. Second question, what's one thing that would support you to improve the quality of your listening this week? So I want you to think about, is there, you know what, if I could finish this project tomorrow, it's going to help me make sure that I've released it and I can focus on listening for the rest of the week. Maybe you want an accountability partner for someone who's in the meeting. Maybe it's you want to shut the laptop because you know that that tends to distract you. Maybe it's you want to vent about something where you're feeling like a real importance of being heard about something that you feel right about, so that when you go into the conversation where you need to check that listening block, you feel like you've released out through venting, through sharing, you've released out that point of view so you can check the listening block of being right. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's just enough. Dear listeners, again, as always, know I'm appreciative of you showing up. I hope and trust that by getting clearer around what are the listening blocks that can stand in my way, you can tap in to your power to listen deeply. And why does this matter in a design yourself context? Well, it matters because in order to be able to set forth and live boldly into our greatest potential, we will not move and operate in isolation. We will need to bring other people along with us, whether that is our colleagues, our clients, customers, our family members, our partner, whatever it is, whoever it is, we need to be able to bring those people along with us. And that means we have to be able to listen. And that means we have to have awareness of what gets in the way of our listening. Okay, that's what I wanted to share. I did tell you I was going to give one more thank you, and that is to Steve Lichtai, who is the founder of Small Good Thing. Those of you who listen to the end of the podcast, you know that that is the small business that has been supporting this podcast through production. And I am so appreciative to Steve, who has been such a resource and strategic guide for me personally, as I have been setting out to say, how can I make this podcast most impactful? And I'm so proud of him and in awe of him. He just took a job as the head of audio, leading all of the podcasting production and strategy for CNN. So, friends, this is why it's so important to build teams of amazing people. And Steve, you are one of those amazing people on my team, and I'm glad you are and appreciative of it. Okay, that, dear listeners, is what I wanted to share in today's podcast. As you go forth, as you listen deeply, as maybe you practice pairing listening deeply with asking powerful questions, know that I will be here holding my deeply held belief that there is nothing stopping you. So go on ahead and get after whatever it is that you really want.